Hi, guys, and welcome to the Dead by Tomorrow podcast. My name is Daniel Winter, and my co host is Andrew Monroe. In each episode, Andrew and I will explore topics that you should think about before you die. We encourage you to remember that some tomorrow will be your last, so each day could be your final chance to really live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. This has got to be kind of weird for you. And by we, I mean it's just Daniel and I with no interview this episode. So if that's what you've been waiting for, welcome back to the original programmed scheduled podcast. If you've been loving the interviews and you hate just Daniel and I talking, sorry, go ahead and skip this one. Today, we're going to be talking about chasing optimization. It is actually a chapter out of the book we released, and one of my favorite parts of the book. I love the concept of it. So without further ado, Daniel, let's hop into chasing optimization. How you doing? What's going on? And what are your thoughts?
I'm doing good. Today has been a good day, minus just dying in a video game. But I mean, hey, it's a video game, and we'll get past it.
Live and learn.
I'm realizing now that instead of playing games, I probably should have been chasing optimization and like doing Duolingo for Spanish or something like that. But it's okay. I didn't have the information from this podcast yet to guide me.
Well, and dude, let's talk about that real quick. This is everything we talk about on the podcast, everything in the book. We're not saying that you have to be perfect, because that's why diets fail. That's why workout programs fail. A lot of people think, well, I didn't do the thing I was supposed to today. I didn't practice my Spanish for 15 minutes. I didn't, I went and played video games, or I had a cheat meal. That's okay. That's called living, and you're giving it best effort. You don't have to be perfect or nothing. No one's perfect. So it's okay. We're going to have our days where you want to play video games. You might even have the majority of your days where you want to play video games. As long as you're trying, that's what really counts.
Yeah, definitely. And so to go into the concept of chasing optimization and what we kind of want to cover today. So whenever it comes to just an average day, we all have a lot more time than I think we realize. And that time exists in sort of these small little moments that we kind of tend to fill with things like social media, just kind of scrolling through things on our phone. And what we want to do and what we want to talk about is just trying to reclaim a little bit of that, maybe bringing some awareness just to how much time gets eaten up and gunked up in between a normal hour, and some tips on, again, how to make a better use of that. So when you think about just your day-to-day, Andrew, I'm curious, where do you feel like you see some of your biggest inefficiencies? Where do you feel like you are just wasting large amounts of time?
There's two. I've got a personal and a work one, basically. It's funny because I was actually thinking about this a lot before we decided we were doing this episode. At work, I'm losing weirdly large amounts of time. And by at work, I mean in my work day. I might not be at the office or whatever it is. I might be working on a thing. But when I'm trying to work on stuff that makes me money, what happens a lot of the time is I'll do a little bit of something. I'll get, let's say, 10 minutes or 5 minutes of effort put in. And I'm like, yay, I did something good. All right, now I need to make sure that nobody needs me. And so I'll go check my email. I will check my text messages. I will go check social media. And I'll try and find a distraction. I will try and find something to pull me away from doing that work. And we've talked about this on Deep Work, so we won't go down that path. But that's where a lot of my inefficiencies come from, is not only am I not doing deep work necessarily, but I'm also looking for excuses not to actually follow through. And so maybe I need that break, or maybe I want to have that gap time between my deep work and the next deep work project or the next meeting or whatever it is. I'm not filling it with anything productive. I'm filling it with the attempt to find something else to do. And then if it's not there, I'm texting people, hey, what's going on? Is there anything I can do for you? I'm looking for diversion. So at work, that's one of the problems I have is every, let's say, 10, 15 minutes, I'm trying to find a new diversion. And I want to try and find something else to work on because my little ADD brain wants to do something new. And then personally, I waste a lot of time in the evening lately. I used to be really good about this, but I don't know what it is. Generally after dinner, I am slow to get anything productive done. And I'm managing basically to find excuses to do things before dinner that seem useful, maybe an errand or two or this kind of different stuff. And I sit down for dinner and then I'm done for the day. And it's been a real struggle, especially lately, for me to kick up into gear and be like, hey, let's knock out 30 minutes of reading, 45 minutes of writing, or something. It's hey, I deserve to play some video games. I deserve to watch some Netflix for 2.5 hours. Little stuff like that has been problematic for me. Inefficient, if we're going to use the word you used.
As you were talking through some of that, I think about this brain health project I've been doing with UTD. And essentially it's a study that is very much focused on strategies, tactics, things like that you can do to build better habits that improve your brain health. And I'm actually a part of the program where they're doing MRIs to kind of substantiate that. And so if that sounds interesting to you at all, by the way, you can go to just Google Brain Health Project. It's UTD's project, and you can totally sign up to be a part of it. But one of the modules that I did recently is all about strategic attention and trying to have a better focus and kind of giving you some tools. And so a couple of the things that they talk through is one, this idea of the brain power of 2. And it's saying there are 2 kind of major tasks that we have throughout a day. And we've got rabbit tasks and we have elephant tasks. And so rabbit tasks, small little things, maybe the distractions, things that can actually be important, but they don't require a lot of brain power or focus. And then elephant tasks are sort of the bigger things. And when I think about tasks, I think those are 2 things that tend to exist. But then I also think that there are 2 other ways we can spend our time besides chasing down sort of a rabbit task or an elephant task. We can also just basically chase down the equivalent of brain junk food, right? Like playing a video game, watching Netflix. It's something where you're not giving your brain a true break. Like you're not letting your mind kind of wander and reset and rest, because you're still engaging your mind, but you're not necessarily getting a lot of stuff done. And so that's another way we can use our time. And then finally, there are the true actual brain breaks that we need, where we are letting our brains rest. We're not actively having a lot of information coming in. So it can be something like going for a walk or taking a shower. And so I think some of the danger we kind of run into is we think that we're giving ourselves a little bit of a break when we're watching video games or Netflix, but that's not a real break. And what you're saying, after you do something big and you kind of look for that distraction, that might be okay, but you just got to be a little bit structured about actually checking off a few of those rabbits, or actually taking a real brain break, or being okay with saying, okay, now I'm going to seek some entertainment and I'm fine with it, but like don't confuse that with rest and recovery.
I like it. And I'm very excited actually about that program, because I'm hoping to get in on it too. I just kind of haven't finished it out yet.
Yeah.
So whenever you're talking about these breaks, and maybe I'm just being selfish here and wanting to learn more, are you talking about like, hey, sit down and read a book, or sit down and be bored, or sit down and be present, or sit down and be mindful, or like what is the recommended space filler that you would use when you're saying like, hey, I'm shifting from a rabbit task to an elephant task, or vice versa, or even shifting from, work stuff to personal stuff? Do you take is it like, hey, take 10 minutes and just work on breathing, or take a 5-minute walk, or like, what's their recommendation, or what's been successful for you on that?
Yeah, so the recommendation is to do sort of what is successful for you. And so I'll share what that is, but also just give some examples. So for me, a lot of times that break looks like going for a walk with Jake, my dog, and not putting in headphones to listen to a podcast or something like that. And that's the crucial difference. Again, nothing wrong with going for a walk and listening into a podcast or whatever it is. Obviously, we hope you listen to podcasts, but if you're truly trying to give your brain a break, you need to limit the amount of information that it's needing to process. So if you're going for a walk, or if you're going for a drive and you don't have something playing, that allows your brain to sort of wander, to rest, to sort of reset. Taking a shower is another good example. We happen to have a seat in our shower, so I can just sit, take a little bit of a longer shower, let my mind wander. Doing meditation, breathing, mindfulness, those are all good examples of things you can do. And if you're like, I don't really have the time to do that, all you need is 5 minutes. It just takes 5 minutes for your brain to reset. So if I go take Jake for a walk, we might just do a walk up and down the block. It's not a huge commitment.
That's great. And I'm going to play off that a little bit. And, that's research backed. So these are things that scientists have said. Now I'm going to jump into the Andrew science, which is about as good as it comes in terms of pseudoscience. But where this helps on the chasing optimization, I think, is in those spaces where you actually pause and find that space to give your brain a moment. That is where you catch up and say, hey, I'm supposed to be doing this thing. Because throughout the day, whenever we're just jumping task to task and we're not controlling the narrative, we are responding, reacting, and looking for reaction from other people. When I'm chasing people around the office and trying to find something to do, or I am, watching Netflix and interacting basically with the TV. It's mostly one-sided, but all of those things I'm doing, that's giving my mind the idea that it's engaged. I mean, it is engaged, but it's taking up the space that I could use to say, hey, you said you needed to write today. You need to practice Spanish today. There's a volleyball tournament coming up and you need to go practice on your serve because that's something you care about. Whatever it is, it could be silly stuff that, no one cares about, like learning Klingon. It could be something important like, hey, I have a project that I need to put 15 minutes a day into, or 20 minutes a day, or an hour a day studying this material. So in a month, I am prepped for the test or this project or whatever you're doing. We are able to push that mindset, that mindfulness about what we should be doing away when we don't have the space to think, because we're chasing and engaging all of these things that don't necessarily matter, because it's easier for us to go along with the flow of the day. And that's where we lose all that time. And that's how we don't optimize our time, is by letting somebody else or something else control the narrative and not taking the space to be mindful of what we're doing with our time. We can't mindfully optimize that time. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah. And to go back to your example of struggling to sort of get things done in the evening, I think a reason why we tend to do that is we're tired at the end of the day, and it takes virtually no effort or brain power to watch Netflix or to play a video game. But while you're doing that, you're not recharging, you're not recovering. So it can't be, I'm going to eat dinner and then I'm going to watch an hour of Netflix and then I'm going to, be recharged and be able to go in and do some writing. No, like you didn't actually give your brain a chance for a break. And at the end of that hour, you're like, I'm still so tired, still so worn out. Today's just not a good day for it. I'll do another hour of Netflix. And it's not that Netflix or gaming is going to drain you. It's just doesn't refill you. And so if you really want to, like you're saying, get back to these things that you're really hoping to accomplish, you've got to make that conscious decision of, okay, I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to do just like a 15-minute yoga flow, or I'm going to go take my dog for a walk, or I'm going to just hop in the shower and give my brain a chance to recoup. And then we'll see where we're at. We'll see if we've got some energy or some brain power to write.
Yeah, that's good. In the book, I have a story about how, trying to focus on optimizing my life. When I turned the switch and said, hey, I want to optimize my time and how it affected me. And it was really impactful for me. So I'm not going to rehash that because, I got to hustle that book out there a little bit. That said, there wasn't a story about you, Daniel, and how you've had moments of optimization. And honestly, of the two of us, I think you are far better. Like, you're the model for someone who really knows how to squeeze the most out of a day and really grow in leaps and bounds over what would be maybe a year and have these really kind of amazing results by working on your time. So let me put you on the spot and see if you have any personal life stories about that.
Well, I do appreciate that. And I will say, when it comes to optimization, I'll kind of tell a little bit of a story, but also just share a little bit of an approach. And so to me, one of the most important things to do is to start each day with a clear picture of what I want to accomplish within that day. And so whenever I'm starting that out and I have that list, what I'm doing is I'm scheming for all the little bits of time and the little ways that I can start to, get those kind of things done so that I get to the end of the day and I've been able to knock out what I'm hoping to get accomplished. I get that sense of accomplishment. And also then I don't really feel that nagging sensation of I shouldn't really go and hang out with friends, or I shouldn't hop on to play this game, or I shouldn't watch this movie because I didn't really get what I wanted done today. And so that's kind of a motivating factor. And so one thing that has been important for me is just maintaining levels of fitness. And so a lot of times that kind of gets baked into my day and my week through games of frisbee or workout times that are planned with friends. And so it's not something that normally I have to put a ton of energy or effort into maintaining. But early on in COVID, when gyms were kind of closed and frisbee wasn't really happening, I needed to be a lot more intentional about that. And so that's where you and I and our friend Brett, we started doing these kind of like push-up challenges and different sort of fitness challenges. And what that did was it pushed me to look for all the little moments where it's like, okay, I got 5 minutes in between this call. I can knock out 10 of my push-ups I need to get done for the day. And doing that helped me to maintain fitness at a time when a lot of people were falling back into a more sedentary type of lifestyle. And so that's what I would say has been important, is going, or I guess starting the day where you've got a plan, when those little bits of time come up, something that you can be doing, as opposed to, well, I've got 5 minutes to kill, I guess I'll check Reddit, or I guess I'll check Facebook. If you already have something in mind you want to do, then you can actually use those 5 minutes.
That's perfect. And that's such a great example too, because it really is, it's nothing time. Obviously we're working out together. The best chest gains I have ever made was during COVID when the gyms were shut down and we were doing the push-ups, and then I shifted the push-ups when that challenge was over. I had a pair of 35s, which is nothing. And I was doing like 15 reps every hour, and I'd do it for like 8 or 9 hours. So I ended up with like 150, dumbbell presses. And after all of these years, finally my pecs were like, all right, let's go, boy. We'll give you an inch. So it worked. And one more point that you made that I really want to hammer on. You're doing this before, you wake up, work starts at 8. If you're doing life properly, you're actually, kind of starting work at 7:50, because that extra 10 minutes was next to nothing, but it's huge to both your management and your direct reports. And, that extra 10 minutes is a difference between like mediocre employee and stellar employee, basically. Like you could just draw the line right there. So let's say you're doing 7:50. If you are waking up and you are rolling into the office at that start time, or you're rolling onto the clock at that start time and you're still downing your first couple of drinks of coffee and you're still rubbing the sleep out of your eyes, you are doing things wrong. You can find 10 or 15 minutes extra in the morning before you show up to the office or show up to your job to sit down and look at the day. You should not be rolling in to the office as part of your wake up process. That is lazy.
Yep. So I've got a follow-up question for you, because this is something that I tend to struggle with. And so do you see any dangers in trying to maximize every day, maximize every moment?
Danger is a hard word for me, because danger to me is like, hey, your life's on the line. And no, I don't see necessarily anything truly dangerous to you. There are complications. It might affect your relationships with certain people, especially a significant other. If you were like, hey, honey, no Netflix tonight, I'm optimizing. If you aren't spending time with people you care about and you're trying to chase purely productivity, and you are doing that at the sacrifice of relationships or your own mental health, then yes, there's problems there. Danger's hard to label that as, but we can use it as a catch-all, I guess, that you can have a dangerous relationship with trying to produce too much too fast. And you're going to burn out. There's always that factor. If you go too hard, too fast, a lot of the stuff we've talked about, we are talking marathon mindsets. This is not I'm going to learn Spanish in a month. It's I'm going to learn Spanish in 2 years, because for 15 minutes a day for 2 years, I think that will get me there. If you try and learn Spanish in 3 months or a year even, you're just not going to get there. If you're going to try and write a book in 5 days, you're in trouble. So there is a danger of pushing yourself too far too fast, and that's going to cost you either the ability to continue, or it's going to cost you relationships. There's going to be sacrifices that are not necessary if you look at it on a long-term approach. That said, that's about all I see in terms of danger. Otherwise, I think we could all really improve on it. And it sucks an exception, like working out too much. There is certainly dangers with working out too much. You can get rhabdomyolysis, or whatever that word is, rhabdo, as everybody calls it. And that's terrifying and horrible and very life-threatening. But I mean, you're doing some crazy stuff before you get to that point. And like, I mean, it's really, really hard to get to the level that you're hitting rhabdo in the gym. Now you might hurt yourself dropping, a weight on your head, but that is unrelated to you working out necessarily. I mean, if you weren't working out, it wouldn't have happened. But if you're being an idiot, like you're destined to hurt yourself anyways if you do silly things like whatever that you shouldn't be doing at the gym anyways. So there's always inherent risk with anything we do. Actual danger, I think you'd have to reach a certain level that requires a different kind of talk that this is not inspiring. We're not going to inspire people to rhabdo levels of production.
Yeah, and I feel like for me though, I actually recently had to kind of commit to during the week to give myself a little bit of a break at times, because I was starting each day where I wanted to have like 2 or 3 things that I labeled or deemed as major productive things that happened in the day. And I was kind of doing that for weeks at a time. And a lot of that centered around, we needed to do a kitchen remodel. So it was, okay, I need to go to Lowe's and buy all this stuff. I need to cut all these boards and I need to put in this paint. And I need to, do these types of things. And I reached a point where I just felt high strung all the time. And it was, I don't know, just not a good feeling. And so I personally think that there is a little bit of a danger in trying to squeeze in and maximize, every day, every moment. It would make it harder for me to kind of just be okay with sitting on the floor and playing with my daughter and hanging out with my wife, because in my mind, I'd already be calculating, okay, maybe I can do this for 5 minutes, but then I've only got 3 hours left tonight and I need to get XYZ done. And if I'm going to have time to do that and then still have time to stick with my, normal routine of reading at night and all this sort of stuff, then, I'm wasting time right here because it's not furthering one of my goals I've written in, so to speak.
And I completely agree with that. And what I was trying to say, I guess, is like Daniel is an example of somebody who doesn't need to hear that you need to optimize your time talk. You are on the side of like, hey, it is okay to take breaks, to tone it back, remember the marathon, not the sprint, that kind of thing. But if you're not the guy, and this is to the audience, if you're not the guy at the Frisbee field who's out running everybody, and you're not the guy that's out working everybody at the gym, and if you're the guy or the girl who's rolling into the office half asleep because you woke up 15 minutes before your shift started or work started, I'm saying you probably don't need to worry about overexerting yourself on production, because this talk is for you. The people who are on the other side of this that do need to be told to calm down, like, you know who you are. We're talking to you on that front, and you're hearing all this. You're like, I already got this down. I'm a machine, 3 cups of coffee a day. You can't stop me. Yes, you need to be aware that there are dangers associated with there's sacrifices that will be made, including your mental health and relationships. But for most people, that is not something that they have to worry about, because, I was talking to my dad today, and again, I guess I'm beating the workout horse, over and over again. But we were talking about people who rip muscles off of their bones because they're going so hard. I was like, and my dad's like, oh my gosh, you need to be careful, Andrew. Like, you don't want that to happen to you. I was like, Dad, look, that's not going to happen to me. The people that are at that level, they've gone so far ahead of me, and they're doing so much more than me. Like, I don't have the time or the effort to get on the level where I need to worry about my muscles ripping off my bone. That's just not me. It's not going to happen. Now, productivity, sure. But if somebody's rolling in at, 2 till or 5 after when their shift starts, like, you're probably not just going to flip the switch and go into Daniel's level of optimizing every 30 minutes. I'm not on that level. I don't need to worry about that kind of burnout, because I kind of know where I sit, and I sit right in my mind, kind of a sweet spot of like, I am okay with being lazy and doing other stuff versus I will, if I have something I'm working on, I can go after it for the marathon for the most part. And I fail at it more often than not. So I'm really not worried about burned out there.
Well, and I guess that's the point I'm trying to get at is I do think that there are people on completely both sides of the spectrum. And my idea is like, where we can, we want to have our cake and eat it too. So we want to
Yes.
be able to enjoy being a little bit more optimized, being a little bit more productive. And I think there are small ways that we can do that, but also, what do we actually like? Are we actually enjoying the fruits of some of that effort, right? If I'm spending all of this time trying to develop my mind or develop my body or speak another language or whatever it is, can I actually enjoy the results of those things, or do I have to just check it off and move on to the next thing? And I think that's what is important is, yeah, like show up to work a little bit early, put in a hard effort to that. And hopefully what that means is you're going to get more satisfaction from your job. You're going to be recognized. That's going to lead to having a position that is something you enjoy a little bit more because you're making it your own. Maybe it's getting a little bit more pay, those types of things. And take some time to enjoy that without then saying, okay, got this promotion, next promotion, got this pay raise, next pay raise. And you're not ever really happy with the result of your optimization.
My man, that's 100% correct. And it comes down to mindfulness. We're not saying chase the goals, right? You can't be just constantly goal chasing. We're saying be mindful of your time. And that includes being mindful of the fruits of your labor. Appreciate that you got what you wanted or got where you wanted to be. Because that is such a dangerous thing. If you can't be satisfied getting that promotion and you're just like, cool, now on to the next one, that's not worth living. And it's the same like, hey, I did all this stuff in the day. You need to be able to appreciate spending time with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife or your best friend or whoever it is, or your dog. Like appreciate and be mindful that those are opportunities that you have created and you get to enjoy. They are not a weight against you. This is purely, hey, quit scrolling through Instagram for 5 hours a day. Do something different with it. Do something meaningful with those small pieces of wasted time, and it's going to make you a better person.
And I'm glad you said scrolling through Instagram, because social media consumption is one of those things that I can pretty much for the most part say like cut that out as much as possible. I mean, yes, there are some benefits to it, but just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what the daily social media usage is. Kind of, I looked worldwide just because, you know, we've got a worldwide audience here. So
millions, baby.
But millions. And so the stat that I found was that 145 minutes a day is the average amount of time that people are spending on social media. Like, we're not talking 5 minutes here and there. Like, that's over 2 hours every day being spent on social media.
2 hours wasted.
Yes. Like, maybe spend 15 minutes, but like, what could you do every day with an extra 2 hours? And yes, I understand that sometimes that is, you know, you've got it open while you're doing something else, but hey, multitasking is actually super bad for you. Going back to the brain health study again, it's very toxic for your brain. So that doesn't make it any better. You can't be like, oh, well, I'm just scrolling through Instagram while I'm like jogging on the treadmill. Like, no, sorry, that doesn't all of a sudden make it okay to spend and to drop that much amount of time into that.
That is becoming one of my trigger words now. People keep, trying to dunk on me because I can't multitask. And I'm like, no, because I refuse to try and multitask only means that I'm trying to be better at this. You can't multitask either. Oh, yeah, I can. I'm great at it. No, you're not. No one is. So
it's a myth.
If you're listening and you said, if you think you're good at multitasking, holler at us and we'll prove you wrong.
That's like saying I'm really good at smoking cigarettes.
Yes.
I'm really good at an activity that is going to destroy my body.
Yeah. Get gone. Get gone.
All right. So we're ready to give you a challenge. We've been asking a lot of our guests to do it. It's time for us to give you our challenge. And if you've been paying attention, I think this one's going to be obvious. So our challenge to you is anytime you pick up your phone and you start to scroll, you know what that means. It may be in Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, Pinterest, whatever it is, the app where you just kind of keep scrolling. Instead, use your phone to further one of your goals. And that's going to require you having some sort of goal for the day. I know for me personally, I would love to learn another language. So an easy goal is just spend some time in Duolingo. So if I pick up my phone and I start to scroll, I think, oh, you know what? This is a perfect chance to do Duolingo. So find something that your phone can help you to optimize in as opposed to scrolling through social media. Let's see if we can get those numbers down a little bit.
That's a good goal. All right, I wanted to leave you guys with a quote to close this one out because this is one of my favorite quotes and I think it's very applicable. So this is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's the purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. So think on that. make sure you are living well and that you have lived well. Thank you guys for tuning in, supporting our podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.